I've always been of the impression that people feel an inadequacy or something in their own personal life or self, so they feel like they have this really nice, souped-up car. It'll give them more value or make them more attractive to women or whoever.
Oh my god.
Nothing!
Alright, how's it going, everybody? Normally I would give you the whole DSP news thing and that whole spiel, but we're not going to do that right now, to be honest, because this isn't the typical video. This is something I probably would normally do if I was doing like a channel update or a company board meeting, something like that. I haven't done one of those in a while, but you get my drift. For any of you who've been around for any period of time for that. I actually want to talk to you guys, I don't know how brief this is going to be, but it might not be too long, about this whole Stuttering Craig and DSP interview and that nonsense. I might even speak a little bit about the Wings and Boogie and what was supposed to be a podcast and became a fight now. I might talk about that, or I might save that for sometime else. We'll see how I feel. First thing is big ups to Raw DSP. The channel went down, but they have their backup channel up. I will leave a link to that backup channel down in the description for some of you who may not know about it. I don't know what happened. I'm not really quite sure what happened. The day it happened, had it playing in the background, and it just never came on. And then when I switched over to Dark Dave Mirrors, that's when I heard what the situation was. But he did have a link available, and then eventually I went over there to Odyssey and I checked it out there. So I'll leave a link to the Odyssey channel down there, and hopefully he gets back up and running soon on YouTube and whatnot. But big ups to him, and you know what I'm saying, always being cool with letting me use his content and everything like that. So big ups to Raw DSP / Dark Dave Mirrors. Big ups to Super Crazy. I saw that he put a video out. It's been a while too, so hopefully he's doing all right. Big ups to him, and big ups to Hate Army. I know his channel got taken down, but it's back up now, and I had to re-sub back up to it. I thought when your channel comes back up, you know, if you were sub to it, you just stay sub to it, but I guess not. I had spoken to a few other people, and they said that has happened to them as well. So big ups to those three. Big up to everybody else. Where do we start? I didn't actually see the Stuttering at the time that I'm recording this. This is on March 3rd. Stuttering Craig had his podcast Side Scrollers this morning where they went over the actual email and shit. I didn't listen to any of that. I will go over it. It's just I didn't listen to it. And when I had other things that I wanted to be doing. So I missed out on all that, but I caught the vibe from the March 1st, when he initially announced the show and everything, looking at him and his response and what his expectations of what he thinks is going to come out of this interview, and then seeing what the other three were reacting to. This is going to be that's just going to be a mess. That's just going to be a mess. They looked like when you you have to think about it in a certain with a certain degree of open-mindedness, right? Darksydephil was never really he was at the cuffs, if you will, of really being mainstream as it pertains to the gaming realm or sphere or whatever the case may be. But you got to also remember, he never hit the heights that people like PewDiePie, people like Markiplier, people like Ninja, and all of them. He never really got there. So this is not me pushing back the goalpost. This is me looking at the bigger picture. If you look at where gaming went, and then you go ahead and look at DSP and where he could have gone, he really didn't go anywhere. Matter of fact, as I said in a previous broadcast about how he had an opportunity to go out to some game studio to test the game for 2 or 3 days, and he chose not to because he wanted to get a little fucking ad revenue on YouTube. He limited himself. He never really was. He had his hoof on the pulse of gaming, but he never got there. And to be honest with you, he was destined to fail from the beginning, and that's the reason why he never got there. DSP can't multitask. He has to be dead set, autistically focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's it. And that shit needs to work. If not, he has to try to pivot. And DSP is not an athlete, and DSP is not flexible or versatile, so that's going to be hard for him. So, in truth, as it pertains to DSP's relevance to gaming, to the gaming community, to the FGC or whatever, he has obviously grossly overstated what his value was. And if you look at where those two communities, for example, the FGC and the gaming community as a whole has gone, they did better without him than they did with him. Proof positive of that is go and look at God of War 2. Look at how they used him as an example in God of War 1, right? Or they were using examples of elements and whatnot, using him as the guinea pig, using him as the case study, and then look at some of the arguments that people have as it pertains to the progression in God of War 2. If you think about it, it's a crazy correlation, and that's not tinfoil, right? That's not something that I just made up. You saw that. You know what I'm saying? You saw the gaming convention where they used him as an example, where they used him as a guinea pig, as they used him as a test subject. You saw that. Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but it's out there. It's out there. With that being said, let's talk a little bit about this situation with side scrollers. Those people look at DSP as if they were looking at the other side of the dark side of the fucking moon. To them, talking about DSP is like talking about some ancient civilization on fucking Mars that inbreeded itself into extinction. They have no clue of the fuckery they're going to get into to deep dive on Phil. They have no clue. And I do know this much, though I haven't seen it yet. I do see how Craig's confidence initially, when he initially announced this interview, and how happy and upbeat and enthusiastic he was about it, he don't look so enthusiastic about it now. I bet you anything he's defending himself on giving Phil this interview, giving Phil this platform. There's a reason for that. Now, I don't want to go ahead and put any bad notions on this situation. I don't want to ripple any type of real negativity out as it pertains to this interview. They don't know. On top of that, Agent Proper of the DIA, you know what I'm saying? He's helping Craig out with that. Stuttering Craig, I have all the faith in Proper, and I'm sure there's word that there's a couple other detractors out there, sensible detractors out there, that are trying to help Craig with that. So whatever happens, happens. You know me, I'm going to cut it up either which way. But whatever happens, happens. But if you look at the culture that Darksydephil has plunged himself into and then continue to fester around him, right? This shit is the fucking abyss. You know what I'm saying? If you really think about it, ladies and gentlemen, this is the dark side of the fucking internet. This is where all of those losers who thought they were something and pissed on everybody on their way up, this is where they fall into their own vile, into their own piss, into their own feces. That's who they're trying to give. This is who Stuttering Craig and side scrollers are trying to platform. An individual who, if he had made it to 500,000 subs or 1 million subs, he would have shit on them all day. it would have been free snorts and everybody can catch it. But he can't do that now, even though they're smaller than he is. He can't do that now because they have something that DSP doesn't. The ears of normal people. I don't want to call them normies, but I guess that's how you would refer to them. But to normal people. People who don't know about lolcows. People who don't necessarily know or care about the drama. That's who his lifeline is with Craig and these guys. And for Craig, he thinks, oh, I'm just bringing a guy in who already has a lot of notoriety, a lot of people who throw money at him for good or bad. I'm going to bring them in. They're going to help boost the podcast up. Some of them may stick around, and it's going to work out for everybody. Well, that's the same thing that, what was the name of that podcast? That's the same thing the Drunken Peasants wanted. That's the same thing that Rich wanted. That's the same thing that the Quartering wanted. I think that was the same thing that Nick wanted, even though Nick didn't need the money. But it brought more people to his content, so there's that. So there's them. So that's what Nick wanted. There's a bunch of people out here who wanted that and gave DSP that opportunity. Even, I mean, you could even say, well, Null and Medicare may have wanted that too, but that's really just for the laughs and the funniness of it. But either which way, I'll put them all in that same basket. I can do that. So that was something that would have been made available to everybody. That doesn't make DSP a commodity, ladies and gentlemen. It makes him an odyssey. He's that weird little thing that everybody goes to the zoo for, the freak show for, and they all point and look at him being like, Jesus Christ, where did God go wrong with that? That's what DSP is looked at on the internet. That's what a lolcow is. And he's grasping onto Craig and side scrollers, thinking, okay, if things work out, right? You know, he's got his hooves around fucking Stuttering Craig's neck, and he's like, okay, if this works out, then you can get me with some of those other guys that used to be cool with back in the day, and then I can slowly crawl my way up. Well, first off, you can't crawl with deformed hooves, and Craig can't give you a lifeline. Craig says that he wants to interview anybody and everybody who comes on. So he's essentially trying to rebuild a platform. So he doesn't have really too much clout to get you in with anybody else. If you think that you're gonna, and I just heard some hilarious shit about Angry Video Game Nerd, and that he wasn't even doing all of his own content, Phil. That he had a partner who was actually playing the video games, who wrote the scripts and did all that bullshit. He was just acting that out. Now, I don't know if Josh from Kiwi Farms is going to go over that. I would assume he featured it, so that means it's definitely going to be on today's shit. But if that's the case, Phil, that shatters your Hypnosis on the Angry Video Game Nerd. And all the bullshit that you thought that made him so great. Someone carried him too. Just like how John and Howard and OJ and Respect the Pack carried your ass. You're going to find out very soon that a lot of these people are they aren't who they were meant to be. Or who you thought they were. But that's a whole nother story. Let's push that to the side. So, DSP is looking at this guy as a lifeline. He's looking at all four of them as a lifeline. And Stuttering Craig really wants to... I'm pretty confident he's really committed to being like, I'm willing to ask him the hard questions. I'm willing to present questions that I feel that are reasonable, that whether he's comfortable or not, I'm going to ask him. Okay, that's all well and good, but first off, are you prepared, Craig, walking into this, that he's going to lie to you? Are you prepared for that? Are you under the expectation that, hey, 50% of whatever this guy snorts at me is going to be a lie? Because I guarantee you it's probably going to be closer to 80, 85. DSP only has so many what's the word I'm looking for? Defense mechanisms at his leisure, right? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we all know what this shit is. Oh, what happened in 2015 with the false copyright claims? What happened to him when he got shit, I'm sorry, I almost drew a blank on that. The escort saga in 2017, even though if someone fills Craig in on the details of that, then that can still be salvaged. Even though there are certain people around who take that as a loss or whatever, that can still be salvaged. So you got the escort saga of 2017. You have the bankruptcy and foreclosure. Well, no, he may call people out on the bankruptcy. He can't really do shit about the foreclosure. He can't really say shit about that. He may be able to call people out on the bankruptcy, but then he can't really do that too because that's public. So he can't do anything about that. So what's the other thing that he can call out? False copyright strikes in 2015, Escort Saga in 2017. I can't think of a good one. Maybe the alleged bank leaks and the thing with the car. The thing with the car is nothing. That's literally nothing. So I don't even care about that. He put it out there as bait. Essentially, what he did with the whole mechanic situation is what Keffels did to try to get Kiwi Farms in trouble. She made herself bait, or they made themselves bait, or however you want to word that. They made themselves bait, and then Kiwi Farms went ahead and jumped on it, or some people jumped on it, and then she blamed that, or they blamed it on Kiwi Farms. Whatever. So that's what happened with Keffels. DSP did the exact same shit. He literally did exactly what Keffels did when it comes to the dealership thing, or the mechanic. The only thing you could really say would be the bank leaks. And then if he does come up out of his fucking snout and has the nerve to say, I lost thousands upon thousands of dollars. Tell me something, ladies and gentlemen. I can't remember what the exact total that was supposedly, air quotes, taken out of his account each and every month, but it was like something around $3,000 a month, right? Supposedly that he didn't notice that came up missing, right? How the fuck does $3,000 come out of your fucking bank account and you don't notice it, and it happened for like 3 months or 2 or 3 months or whatever the case may be? And let's say it's not $3,000. Let's say between $1,000 and $3,000. I thought I heard it was like $3,000 a month that what he got finessed out of, supposedly, even though he couldn't have had $3,000. He couldn't have even had $1,000 taken from him because he was crying broke all 3 of those months. He cries broke every month. He's from paycheck to hoof to fucking snout. So how did he have $9,000 that he got taken from him and he didn't notice? And if he was broke, how would that have existed in the first place? So that doesn't make any sense. And so someone has to call him out on that. Now, one of the concerns I'm sure that people have is bombarding these people with all of this information and having them try to make it stick. Realistically, that's never going to happen. There's too much information. There's way too much information. You would have to pick and choose. You have to pick and choose what story arc or what saga you're gonna hit them with, and then you just present the video evidence, which is out there, and that's it. That's all you really can do. You can't throw them into the fucking vortex. You can't throw them into the abyss and expect them to tread water. You can't. We've seen people who were actually interested in DSP drown. We've seen people who that ended up getting corrupted in this shit, and they ended up drowning. They're not going to even be able to tread water. So you're going to have to, it's going to be a slow process giving this to them. And even then, not all of it's going to stick. And if all of it's getting run through Stuttering Craig, I have a bit of a problem with that. Let me explain. Now, I don't know Stuttering Craig. I don't know any of the 4 people that make up the Side Scroller podcast. What I do know is from that initial response, Craig really wants this, and those other three seem disinterested, disgusted, and kind of just like, okay, Craig, if that's what you want, we'll kind of be with you. Well, if all the questions get filtered through Craig, he essentially picks what goes and what don't. I, ladies and gentlemen, propose a bit of divide and conquer, in that if for any of you who have watched the actual reading of the emails or whatever, look at how those other 3 respond to it. Look at how they actually physically react to it, and then listen to what they say. And then, if you were inclined to, you could choose certain aspects of DSP's story and send that to them directly. And be like, hey, I don't want to bombard you with a bunch of things. Here's this saga here. What do you think about that? Because if Craig don't pick it up, or if he don't talk about it, they have something to say. Because remember, there's 4 people on that podcast, not 1. And bombarding it all on Craig is not going to work. He'll retain some of it, maybe even most of it. But he's going to be very selective on what he wants because his objective is to get DSP to that fucking podcast. Right? His mission is to keep him there. So, if the other three have, 2 or 3 questions amongst themselves individually, then that right there rounds us out off a little bit. This right here is, you could say it's entrapment, but truth be told, it keeps everybody in the loop, and for the most part, it'll keep DSP honest, because DSP is already going to be paranoid going up there. I'm sure that email, he's asking Craig he wants reassurances, he wants promises, whatever the case may be. Just like he did with the quartering, just like he's done with anybody else who's ever offered to interview him. But he thinks he's safe because he thinks, oh, well, Craig, Stuttering Craig used to be somebody and he'll protect me and whatever. And his audience will back him up. So that means, and if he's backing me up, then it'll work out. But if the other 3 have something to say, if they themselves are like, well, I've been thinking about this right here, Phil. What is your thoughts on this? Could you explain that to me? Could you give me your side of the story on that? That changes the perspective. What's Craig going to do? He's going to go ahead and shoot his own man on the podcast because they had a question to ask? I don't think so. So that's my initial thoughts with his audience there, but they look either disinterested or they're disgusted. That's what it comes down with them. They already don't know much about Phil, and what they do know isn't very good. So I don't think they're going to be they're going to be receptive for the show's sake and obviously for Craig's, but DSP is not someone that they're going to get cool with. And DSP has 4 individuals that he's cautious of. He has to know by now that Craig is talking to detractors. The other 3 are going to follow Craig's lead. So he's already, wary of Craig. He's wary of all of them. And he probably should be. Now, this isn't me trying to tank the interview. It's going to happen no matter what. But it's not going to be the show that everybody thinks it's going to be. You can't just cram a bunch of information into a person in a short amount of time and make it work. Like, they have to understand all of the nuances of a story so they know how to... So first they know how to present it. But then when DSP has his retort to it, they know how to go to touche to that. They need to know how to come back on him with any little details that he has. And DSP is probably one of the more documented people on the internet. It's not like it can't be found, this information, right? Whether in video form or spoken in one place or another. And that's where DSP's problem is going to be. That's why he needs reassurances. That's why he needs to come in and dictate to them, hey, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. Hate Army has a video that just popped up, and I haven't watched it yet, and which means if it popped up, it's probably been out for about an hour. But I do want to watch it. But let me just give this to you right here, right now, and then see what happens after that. Because this isn't going to work out. There's not going to be a happy ending for this. DSP is a lolcow. It is what it is. The podcast is going to go out there. People are going to cut it up into digestible little pieces for you guys to listen to. And then other people will dissect that shit and point out all of his lies and bullshit, just like he did with his 7 years or 6 years debunk, or his 6 years after Machinima and all that bullshit. He's going to get hit for all that. And matter of fact, let's talk about that a little bit. What are things that are safe, quote unquote, that DSP would be okay with probably answering, or he would find to be non-threatening, that he's going to end up shitting the bed on? Well, the Machinima saga sounds like a good one. How about you tell us what happened there, Phil? Let's pick stuff that, quote unquote, a detractor didn't do to him. Tell us about Machinima. Why'd you get kicked off of Machinima, Phil? Hey, Phil, why'd you get kicked off of Curse? Because he wasn't... The truth be told, the reason why he got kicked off of Curse is because he wasn't making them any money. That's what it was. I'm just throwing that out there. You guys already know that. Same thing with Twitch. Twitch, he was using hateful language. Oh, I never said anything racist. Let's stop all that nonsense. He forgets the fact that there are compilations of him shitting on his own audience members on a daily basis. That right there is enough. That is verbal and psychological abuse. You could even say really emotional abuse as well, but it's definitely verbal abuse. And Twitch didn't want that, nor did they need it. On top of that, he was breaking the embargo, his 24-hour embargo that he had on his fucking little contract. Craig could ask him about that. I mean, I don't know if Craig's going to try to skirt it and be like, oh, well, he's blurred the lines of the rules or whatever. He can do what he wants to do to go ahead and try to make it as comfortable as possible for DSP. But eventually you're going to have to ask him some hard questions. And if you think that DSP is going to be a reoccurring person on your show, I mean, he can. But what happens when you put him up there with Rich? Rich has been on the internet for a very long time. He's talked about video games for a very long time, and I'm no fan of Rich, so I don't owe Review Tech USA shit. But he's been around for a long time. The guy has a name, and he has a following, and Rich may very well be receptive to doing that. What's going to happen then when you have DSP and Rich on the same panel? If DSP bounces out, there's a problem. Review Tech's not going nowhere. So if DSP decides to pull out of that situation, there's going to be a problem. He's going to have to explain that. And that can be said for almost any potential guest that was going on that show. So there's a lot of issues with this on these guys' end. You're bringing 4 people into... Well, yeah, you're bringing 4 people into this. I was going to say that Craig is essentially a willing collaborator on doing this, and the other 4 are just trotting along. You're bringing all 4 people into a part of the internet that none of them are familiar with. I understand that Craig likes to talk about his politics and all that nonsense, and that's blood sports in itself. But things over here are different. Things here are different. And is he going to be able to deal with the scrutiny? Not from DSP. Because DSP is going to lie to him anyway, so who gives a shit about that? What's he going to do about the scrutiny about the people that he's trying to bring in to help build his platform? Remember, Craig is doing this because he wants to build his platform up. And that's why he's trying to get as many people as possible to come onto his show, to get as many eyes on there to grow. There's nothing wrong with that. But what's going to happen with the scrutiny that's going to come with that? There's going to be a lot of people that are going to have a lot of things to say about this on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube, respectfully. And he's going to have to own all of that. Now, no one is asking for DSP to dox himself or to do whatever. But for someone who's making 6 figures and is begging, he owes us something. He owes his audience something. He doesn't owe me shit. He owes his audience something. He don't owe me anything because I know he's a liar. So I don't even care. I care to the extent of the video that I make on it. Outside of that, I already know he's lying. DSP lies in the same way that he breathes. So you can't trust anything that he says. Not a goddamn thing. And if he tries to go up there and tries to be like, I wish people would take me seriously. I wish people would believe what I said, yada, yada, yada. How many times have you admitted to lying before, Phil? You remember? I lied to you guys to protect my family. Remember that part, Phil? Here's another thing that Craig and the rest of those guys can ask Phil. Hey, Phil, when you said that your parents were sick and dying, right? And that you had to make that trip to Connecticut to see them, and you were bringing Catherine with you because, quote unquote, they were dying to meet her, and then it turns into you actually went out there and got married? How are you going to explain that to Craig and the rest of Side Scroller? Oh yeah, I lied to my fucking mentally ill audience for them to give me money so I could fly to Connecticut so I could get married. Oh, that's right. My parents actually paid for that entire trip, for our hotel stay. They gave us pocket money. They paid us for the wedding. They gave me money. They gave me money to put down on they gave me money to put towards the payment plan for my taxes. How are you going to explain that to them, Phil? And that's stuff that you went ahead and revealed willingly. Hey, Phil, are you going to tell them about the backstate business and occupation tax? Oh, that's private information. Is it really? Because didn't you ask your audience to help you with that, to give you money so you didn't lose your house? And on top of that, to get Catherine from Michigan to Washington State so you guys can have a life together? Because it's not like you guys could have a life together in an apartment, right? You needed that house. Phil, you're the one who said if you can't keep that house, the relationship that you and Catherine have is gonna break apart. It's gonna fall apart. That's something you said publicly. That's not prying. That's public information that you put out there. Here, Since I'm feeling generous and, you know what I'm saying, I'm paying for the next round of SnortBucks coffee, let's go another round. Hey, Phil, what about when Panda had that panic attack or anxiety attack or whatever that was? What about when she had that, right? And what about how you told them that the next time this happens, just give her a pill and leave her somewhere? No, we don't want you bringing her to the hospital. No, you guys didn't do anything. So just give her a pill and leave her somewhere. Tell Craig about that. Tell Craig about how, oh, well, the truth is, Craig, that we were actually broken up, right? But no one knew that we were broken up, but we were broken up. And her job called me. I don't know why they called me because we weren't even together no more. But they called me and I had to leave my job. I had to leave my stream and pick her up because apparently there was no one else to pick her up. Even though she still partially still lived with you, she was cucking you with your car and you were still on her emergency contact list. Oh, and also tell Stuttering Craig that when you said that, oh, when the hospital comes in, it's going to be like, oh, I think it's probably going to be $1,000 or $1,500. You know, for what? They didn't do anything. Remember how you had that false outrage about that, and then years later you admitted, oh, I only did that because, you know, we didn't want to let you guys know that we weren't together anymore. So I was just kind of playing it up, the fake outrage to keep you guys off balance. Remember that, Phil? So how about we talk about that? Can Stuttering Craig bring that shit up? Is that a thing? Can we talk about how you went finesse them for you finessed your audience out of $2,000+ to fucking reveal Jasper? You want to talk about that? You want to talk about how you finessed John and Howard out of any money that they may have had entitled to them? You want to tell them about how Project 7 failed? You want to talk about the Project 7 reboot? And how you went ahead and charged all this extra money through Patreon to have it rebooted? Not a trailer. His original pitch, which is still on his fucking channel, is to have the Project 7 reboot. Not a fucking trailer. And you dropped the trailer, you dropped doing the trailer because you wanted to play the beta for Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V turned out to not be what you wanted it to be, which was, I guess, supposed to be the second coming of Super Turbo. And then you just finessed all the Patreons out of their money. And then you said only one person was outraged about it, and you felt bad. But the Snort train just keeps on coming. You want to talk to him about that? That's something serious. Here, how about we talk about when you sat there and you through your own website, you convinced whoever to get you Be Awesome One's information, and then you threatened him with it. Remember? Hey, I got your IP, I got your name, I got your IP, and I got your address. You fucked up. You really did. Be Awesome One. But I'm not going to do anything with it. But just know that I got you. You hear me? I got you. Remember that, right, Phil? I remember that. Pepper's Farm remembers that. Oh, and then you remember later on when you were with your little cronies and shit playing whatever, and you were like, yeah, hey, Be Awesome One, I might go ahead and take a trip across the pond to see you, buddy. I might consider doing that. So, which could be considered another threat. You remember that, right, Phil? That was a thing. That happened. Right? Okay. So we have that nonsense. You have all... like, there are fucking multiple examples of the bullshit I could pull. You know what? Let's go ahead and go for another one, because I'm not even finished with this round yet. Hey, Phil, what about when Machinima finally ended up closing down, right? And you went on Twitter and said that everybody who worked at Machinima, they deserve to get fired. They deserve to lose their jobs because of what happened to you. How about that? You want to tell Stuttering Craig about that? Matter of fact, tell Stuttering Craig about what happened to you at Blip in that Dead Space 2 fucking demo. Tell him about that. Tell him how you were trying to be edgy and you stole those Howard Stern jokes and tried to pass them off as your own, like some fucking Gouty Carlos Mencia or some bullshit. And then you got clapped for it. And then you ended up making a fucking series of videos trying to prove your innocence. And in one of those videos in particular, you low-key try to threaten your manager and whoever his boss was above him, saying that, hey, I have 100,000 followers here on YouTube, and you know, I'm, you know, we're willing to overlook this if you guys can just reinstate me. I messed up. I get it. You know, explain to me, outline to me what I can do and what I can't do, and I won't do it again. But do you really want me to go to my audience and tell 100,000 subscribers that you're not going to give me a chance because I fucked up once? Do you guys really want to do that? You remember that, Phil? You remember that low-key fucking threat? I'm just saying, there's a bunch of examples of bullshit that has nothing to do with your fucking family, right? Just that stuff that you did on the internet. That's just nonsense you did on the internet. How about we go ahead and talk about Pokemon Sun and Moon? And how you went ahead and got a bitch fit because you couldn't hold on to 400 people on your little fucking stream. And then you called your audience lazy and shit. Which is one of the reasons that you have a beef with fucking Review Tech USA now. How about you tell Craig about that story? Tell him about that shit. Tell him about how your words were taken out of context. Tell him about how, it's not the fact that I said that. It's not the fact that I called my audience lazy. It's that some piece of shit went ahead and clipped it and put it on the internet. That's what the problem was. Not that I said anything. Not that I did anything. It's that someone caught me and someone put it on the internet to fucking make me look bad. Why don't you tell Stuttering Craig and his audience about that shit? How about you go ahead and tell them about that situation on PlayStation? It was Mortal Kombat, right? Or was it Injustice? It was either Mortal Kombat or Injustice, where one of those guys called you out for that situation when Panda Lee got out of pocket, and you went ahead and put the chat on like subscriber only mode. You called them fucking children, and you just berated them and whatnot. When in truth be told, that was Panda who started that bullshit. And then that dude called you. That dude didn't even call you out. He just asked you about it. He just wanted to get a better understanding of what that situation is. But because you were angry and because you were drunk, you sat there, and not only did you basically dashboard out that bitch, but then you had your audience try to find this guy on PSN or Xbox, I think it was PlayStation, and basically spam his inbox so he couldn't do anything when he turned his console back on. Or he couldn't proceed with anything on his console because he had to deal with all these bullshit messages. How about you tell them about that? So what is that, Phil? That is doxing, online harassment, scamming, begging, lying. And that's just the shit I can pull off the dome. Tell them about that. Tell them about your fucking, your one-sided feud with fucking PewDiePie. Actually, tell him about your jealous rants that you've had against multiple people online who are more successful than you or who have better lives than you or whatever the case may be. Explain that stuff to him about that. Tell him about how jealousy is a normal thing and you exercise it on a daily basis because you know you're a piece of shit, you know your life is trash, and you're mad that everybody fucking made it. And you could have too if you worked hard or if you wanted it. No, you wanted to coast. You're the shining fucking example of what happens when motherfuckers try to ice skate uphill. That's literally what you are. You are literally someone who peaked early, didn't even get that far now that I think about it, and you literally thought you could ice skate uphill. Matter of fact, since we talk about you peaking, right? Let's talk a little bit about how you got onto Machinima in the first place. Tell Stuttering Craig and side scrollers on how you had to suck Hutch's dick to get a job after you got beasted off a blip. Which is funny because you were just beefing with fucking Hutch a few months earlier. And then you weren't even willing to respond to most of the things that he was even saying to you. You thought you were above it. But then you had to get on your hoofy hands and knees and beg him for a job. And here's the irony of it all. He came through for you. He felt so bad for you that he came through for you. And see, that's really the story of Darksydephil, ladies and gentlemen. He's someone that other people have pitied. And that's the reason why he's at where he's at. He can talk about this hate mob against him and this movement and all these mentally ill people and all this nonsense all he wants. Truth be told, he's the result of charity. He had a few years, I'll say that. He had a few years where he could have been something. And then he crapped out. You like to gamble, right, Phil? So he crapped out. And other people had to pick up the pieces. Hey, Phil, tell him how you said begging is not begging. It's advertising. It's a business. Tell him about that. Tell him how you said, oh, my whole business is based off of crowdfunding because I don't want to be a sellout. I don't want to be a shill. I want to be able to say what I want to say when I say it. Matter of fact, Phil, why don't you tell him about State of Decay 2? Tell him how he, because, Craig is a gamer, right? A real gamer. So why don't you go ahead and tell Craig how you went on the internet and you told everybody who gets advanced copies and review copies that they're all shills and they're all sellouts and they're all liars. Matter of fact, Phil, go ahead and tell Stuttering Craig about how you called Maximilian a sellout and a shill, and how anytime he has anything that says #ad in it, it automatically makes him a liar and he shouldn't be trusted. Tell Stuttering Craig about that. Matter of fact, does Stuttering Craig have any advertisements or endorsements or sponsorships? You might as well go ahead and call him that to his face. Has he had it in the past before? You might as well go ahead and call him that to his face. Are you willing to do that, DSP? See, this right here, DSP is worried about the big shit. He's worried about the larger... don't worry, I'll pay for this third round. But DSP is worried about all of the he's worried about all of the big shit coming down on him, right? Ladies and gentlemen, the big stuff are not necessarily the things that he needs to worry about. It's all of the small stuff that I've laid out to you is the problem. That stuff is the issue. That's the stuff that could really hurt him, because those are things that can be normalized. I don't know how any of those three people besides Stuttering Craig is. I don't know how any of those four people actually operate, or whatever they are on their thoughts on how you should treat people or how you should act on the internet and in IRL or whatever the case may be. I have no clue. But anybody who is sensible, who is willing to look at any of those individual things that I laid out to you and really deep dive into that, will find a problem with it. Well, what made you do this? I don't give a fuck about how stressed he is. I don't care about his fucking depression. I don't care that he was an alcoholic or whatever the case may be. That's on him. That's his problem. That's his decisions that he made. That doesn't give you a right to treat other people like trash. Especially other people who are who are trying to help you. Because keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, the majority of people who suffered that were not detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. These were the people in his own audience. They were the ones who got shit on. They were the ones who had to pick up DSP in his pieces. Matter of fact, Stuttering Craig, or whoever, go ahead and ask Phil about the vest streak. Ask him how he lied when I think the vest streak actually ended at like 73 or 76. I think. Hold on a second. It was one of those two. It was like 73 or 76 is when it actually ended. Because he was off by like $3 or $6 or whatever it was. But if you really go back and look, there was a couple of times where DSP was padding the vest streak just to give the image that they hit it. But whatever. So it initially ended somewhere in the early 70s. But then it ended up ending at what? 276? 273? 273, 276. Well, ask him why it failed. Ask him why he failed. Phil, why did the vest streak end? You had a good thing going for a long time. A lot of money. A lot of money. You know what I'm saying? Speculation was between, what, 25,000? Could have been as much as 30,000. Where'd that money go, Phil? Where'd all that money go? On top of the the money he was getting he was on Twitch. So on top of the vest streak, we still had cheers, and then he still had subs. And then he still had YouTube. Where did all the vest streak money go? Hey, Phil, now I think about it, Emerald 7. Remember Emerald 7, right? Where'd all that money go? Where'd all that go? 17,000, whatever the hell that was? Where'd all that money go? These are questions that he needs to answer. Because it's kind of funny. It's almost like his monthly expenses are completely dictated on the money that he has. Let me reword that. Basically, whatever he gets for the month, he spends all of it. There is no saving. There is no putting no money away. So if he makes 17 grand in a month, when that Twitch paycheck comes in, that bitch is gone. He should have had reserves for the next 2 months, theoretically, just off of the vest streak. If he was spending only what he needed And instead of spending what he wanted, there should have been a lot of money left over in reserves. Same thing with Emerald 7 and his money, or in their money. That money should have lasted DSP at least 2+ months. That should have been padding. That shit should have been banked, because he was still collecting his regular Twitch paycheck, and he was still collecting off of YouTube. And YouTube was still producing a couple of thousand, if not a few $1,000s a month at that time. These are some of those questions. And you can, if you go ahead and say, oh, well, no financial shit, there's still a bunch of ways that he can be attacked. Now, Proper, and I'm sure whoever else is helping, I'm sure they already have all this shit in the book, so I'm preaching to the choir. Sorry, I am preaching to the choir as it pertains to that. But what I will say is this interview is not gonna produce what you want. I don't know if I'm gonna say it's gonna be as bad as the quartering, but, and this is nothing against Stuttering Craig or even his audience. You're just visiting. You know what I'm saying? You haven't even walked into the House of Snorts. Like, this shit is different. This is like the dark side of the internet. And I can already see the trepidation that's in most of your guys' attitude anyway. You guys really don't want to be here, and I don't blame you and whatnot. And Craig should probably look at what's beneficial to not just his audience, but to the members of his audience. Let's reword that. Craig should be just as concerned for the members of his audience as he is for the people that are on his podcast. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not saying that if they fuck this interview up, that it's going to be held over their head forever. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you're exposing a group of people to an individual that they really have no idea about at all. And even the few people in his initial unveiling of wanting to have a podcast with DSP on it, the majority of the people in the comment section or in the chat said no. They were like, no, why would you do that? No, this isn't a good idea. And there's a reason. They may not know about the deep lore. They may not even know about the lore. But they know enough about him to know that this isn't a good look. And nothing that DSP says to them, no crocodile tears, no bullshit sob stories, none of that bullshit's going to ever change it. At best, he gets pity from them. At worst, they ignore him. And then DSP is going to go right back to the same slop bullshit that he's in. I got another question too, Phil. You keep saying, you said it before the Moist Critical thing, that you had people lined up, this, that, and the third, and you were going to be in good shape no matter what. Moist Critical falls apart. You basically challenge him to allow you to come on, but he's going to ignore you anyway, so nothing came out of that. So what happened to all these other people supposedly you had in the wings that you could still do something with when you had time to? What about them? And not that I give a fuck about any of them anyway, but I'm just saying, what about them? Like, how are you choosing who you're going to work with and who you're not? Because it almost sounds like to me that whoever these other people you had circulating around you, well, it could have been fuck all with fuck all if the Moist Critical interview happened. They weren't so important anymore when you thought you had Moist Critical in pocket. When you fucked that shot up, which the shot never existed anyway, that was Hypnosis that you self-inflicted upon yourself. Now, you said, oh, well, I got other people lined up, and when I get more time, I'll do it. But then, this guy, Stuttering Craig, said on March 1st, that he said that he had you lined up for like the next day. I mean, it's not going to happen. He said it wasn't going to happen because of whatever. But he said that he had you literally lined up for the next day. Well, that's weird, because weren't those other guys ahead of him? So, what is it, Phil? Is it just a matter of who you can use first? Or who you have a better chance with? Like, explain to me. And maybe Stuttering Craig is one of those people who's like, hey, to do business, you gotta break a couple eggs to make an omelet, or whatever the case may be. Gotcha. I roger that. I roger that. But Phil, you strung those people along for a good amount of time to not let them know what's going on. There are people waiting on you. These aren't those fucking idiots who sit there and tip you on your stream, and you sit there and say, oh, I see there's contributions coming in. Oh, I'll get to that in a second, so you can try to bait out more tips. These are people who may actually be putting their own projects onto the side. so they can put in work with you. Why? So you can have your stupid little reaction channel that ain't getting off the ground, is damn near dead anyway? Speaking of which, I need to go over that King Cobra and him reacting to the brilliance of the FGC Part 2, even though I'm pretty confident he didn't go over that whole video. So I still need to do that too. But you can't just leave people out there like that. You're not in demand like that. Only a small part of the fucking internet actually gives a fucking shit about you. And that's the thing that I've been wanting to talk about this for a second. That's the situation. Give me a second, I'm sorry. He overinflated his value because of the Frederick Knutson video, the Down the Rabbit Hole. Now, I'm not saying that's Frederick's fault, because it's not. But DSP saw all the views on that bitch, and he thought, oh, I must be important because this documentary, you know, has 6 million views, yada, 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 yada. Phil, I know multiple people, myself included, that have watched that video multiple times. And I got that bitch downloaded somewhere. If not, Diggs does. Like, you know what I'm saying? If not, Asian GTG does. Like, I have that shit downloaded. You know what I'm saying? And I've watched that shit multiple times. I think I know the video damn near front to back. Same thing with the Flinch FGC video that was made on you. It's a much shorter documentary, but it's a good one, though. It's a good watch. I've watched that shit multiple times, too. Every once in a while, I fucking go on YouTube just to turn that bitch on, just so I can hear it. Just in case I missed something. So, you have to understand that there's multiple people who have watched that video. Multiple people. Multiple people have watched the video multiple times, I should say. So, you know what I'm saying? Your value isn't that important in the overall. It's not a thing. Not as serious as you think. And I think because of that, and because of him being able to react to that video, and hopefully tying his react to that video in the algorithm, that's what made him think, okay, there's real value, there's real demand. I'll pick and choose who I decide to do business with, or who I decide to tell my story to, or whatever the case may be. And unless people are paying, what's the point? Like, what's really the point? Like, if Nick Rekieta paid you to do an interview, the value of that interview to me goes down by a quarter. It just does. It just does. And it's like a stupid little thing on my end, but it's it just does. And then Nick isn't out to hurt you. He's out to banter with you. I don't even think Nick even cares about the lore so much, about instead of just bantering with you about the funny shit that you're known for doing or saying or whatever, and seeing if he can just get a good laugh out of you, which is something that Nick needs right now, to be honest. But funny enough, and I can't find the clip, so you kind of have to take my word for it, but you don't have to. But I can't find the clip. But Nick was in a podcast with like 4 or 5 other people. Had been within the last 3 or 4 months. And he brought up DSP, and he said, I'm really thinking about paying him to do this interview. And he's like, oh, wow, for real? He's like, yeah, because every time I talk to him, he always keeps bringing up, oh, well, I'm going to have to take some time off from work. And, you know, DSP is clearly subtly hinting at, you're going to have to pay me for this interview. So if I could just find the goddamn clip, if I could find the goddamn podcast Nick said it in, it'd be easier. But that's my own torment to deal with. So it is what it is. I mean, that's my initial thoughts on it. Like I said, I'm gonna go over the video because why wouldn't I, right? But like, you know, and I have a lot of faith in Proper. I got a lot of faith in the detractors, whoever they are, whoever it is that's working with Proper to try to bring Stuttering Craig up to speed. But that don't mean Craig's gonna be able to execute. You can ask all the questions you want, but if you don't know what to push back on, if you don't have at least some of the details that you can question DSP on, then it doesn't mean nothing. It really don't. It's just like how, think about any of you guys who went to high school or college, right? You have some people who can sit there and study for weeks and still do okay and pass on a fucking test, and then you got some people, man, that'll cram that shit on an all-nighter and ace that bitch. It's everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? He hasn't talked to DSP in years. He could have. Now that I think about it, as it pertains to that whole email bullshit, did you guys talk to each other on Discord? Have you guys actually verbally spoken to each other? No, you haven't. I'm guessing. So you don't know shit about this person. You don't know shit about Craig, and Craig don't know shit about you. You guys did an event, what, 2013 or whatever the case may be? You guys don't know fuck all about about each other. You guys hung out for a day or two or whatever. That's not history. I was at an event with someone for a couple of days 10 years ago. I would never say, oh yeah, I got history with that person. All I can say is, oh yeah, I hung out with him once over a decade ago. Or almost a decade ago. That's it. There's no real connection besides that. So what else are you going to pull out? And then more importantly, Phil, because now that I'm bringing up this whole what you did back in the day nonsense, because I already feel it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I already feel the vitriol in you about this. You're going to go on that fucking show and you're going to look that man and those other 3 people in the face and you're going to sit there and say, I did shit a decade ago. I shouldn't be condemned for that now. Fuck you and whatnot, and the horse that you rode on and everything else that aligns with. First things first. It's not about what you did 10 years ago. What about what you did 8 years ago? What about what you did 5 years ago? What about what you did 3 years ago? What about what you did a year ago? What about what you did last week? That's why you're a lol cow, Phil. Because you're always doing some dumb shit. You didn't change. You're still the sniveling little bastard, ungrateful piece of shit that your mother fucking pushed out for God knows what reason, and has been ungrateful for every day of your fucking life. And nothing will change that. And this is the internet. The internet don't forget. That's why it's the fucking internet. And you put a large amount of your fucking life on the internet, Phil. A large amount. It's almost on Chris Chan levels. And Chris Chan has to eat that Chris Chan's in jail because of that bitch. If you really think about it. All that dumb shit that Chris Chan did for all those years he was on the internet eventually got him to jail. Or got him put in jail. Or prison. Whatever. Because there was always someone looking to push the envelope on him. And the person who ended up doing it, the psychopath who ended up putting him in there, isn't even a fucking member of the Chris Chan community. It was an outlier who was looking to make a name for herself when she wasn't boiling hamsters or whatever the fuck. You're very fortunate that you haven't had that. And see, that's the thing about Stuttering Craig and side scrollers. They're not familiar with this part of the internet. They haven't fallen to this part of the internet. They don't know shit about the vortex, shit about the abyss. They have no idea about who a fucking Chris Chan is, or a Cobra JFS, or a Wings of Redemption, or all that shit. Or if they do, they knew them pre-locale. They have no clue about how the system works. And this shit, for most people, could probably be quite scary. Maybe. You know what I'm saying? That's why don't watch me. Watch somebody else. There's a bunch of fucking great content creators and whatnot, detractors out there. Watch them. Don't watch me. You know what I'm saying? Don't watch me. Watch somebody else who fucking is reasonable and shit. But they're not used to this shit. And they don't want to be used to this shit. They don't want to get drugged down into this. And they can't protect you, Phil. They can't save you. There is no redemption for people like you. There just isn't. And I'm not sorry to say that. You never wanted it. And I already feel like I said, I can feel the porky vitriol in you right now. You're going to sit there and say, how long is enough? Bitch, you could have stopped this years ago. Years ago, all you had to do when you spurred the fuck out is be like, you know, I was wrong. You didn't want to do that. When This Is How You Don't Play happened, right? Big ups to Evil AJ. And the Outsider too, by the way. And anybody else. But like, you know what I'm saying? When This Is How You Don't Play happened, all you had to do was keep quiet about it. Or all you had to do was be like, oh, well, you know, I mean, it happened. It's true. And whatever. And move the fuck on. Why the fuck weren't you talking about, oh, people were saying racist comments and putting all disgusting shit into it back in the day? You didn't say that back then. You were mad that they were making a mockery of you and your gameplay. You didn't have shit to say about the comments back in the day. That came later when you needed a better excuse for it. Matter of fact, why don't you tell Stuttering Craig? I wanted to call him Stuttering Steve. Why don't you tell Stuttering Craig about how you went ahead on your little fucking on your fucking little couch back in Connecticut, and you said, as it pertains to This Is How You Don't Play, oh, I don't know if, the guy who made that, I don't know if that guy's gonna come to my house and fucking murder me. Tell him about that. Tell him on how someone who made a 50, 56, 59 minute compilation about you being a piece of shit, unable to learn how to do anything. Because the way DSP does anything is usually how he'll do everything. Mark my words on that. Out of all the spurgery that you've heard up to this point, mark my words on that. Tell him how you thought you sat there and told your audience that you thought Evil AJ may come to your house and try to fucking murder you. Tell him about that. And then you keep talking about, oh, it all started with Evil AJ and This Is How You Don't Play. What about DSP Cult Leader? Why the fuck do they get erased from history? Why the fuck do they get pushed out? They were legitimately the first. They are essentially patient zero. The first person, or at least they have to be like the first person, I think, that was calling you out on your bullshit. But whatever. The internet has a very... even though the internet has a real long memory, we forget our own more often than not. That's my initial thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I'll go over all of it in general, but that right there is just a rough example of what I have. I mean, I could go ahead and try to find the Hate Army video. I could put it in. We could go ahead and talk about it now, but I'll save that for a whole separate shit and whatnot. But that's my initial thoughts on that. I don't think it's gonna... I hope I'm wrong. I'll say that. Like I said, who knows when the damn thing's gonna happen anyway. So whatever. Time is the ultimate monkey. Meaning that the sooner DSP can get this interview going, the better for him. The longer he waits and the more time that Stuttering Craig and the rest of the members of Side Scrollers have time to really go out there and research on Phil, the more trauma he's setting himself up for. So it's up to DSP. It's really up to him. You can either draw this shit out, which is essentially give you enough rope and you'll hang yourself. So you either try to deal with the bullshit now, or you wait and you get hung. And it's going to be slow and it's probably going to be painful. And that's if Craig can execute. That's if the dude can even execute. So it is what it is. I don't know. There's probably a couple other points that I missed. I mean, we can save it for the video and then we'll go at it from there. Give me a few. Well, it'll be a few minutes, but for you guys, it'll be only a couple seconds. And then let's talk a little bit about this Wings Boogie situation, and then I'll let you guys go. I'll see you guys in a second. Okay. It was a little bit longer than I was expecting, but and then I had to adjust that real fast. Okay, so we're right back at it. Okay. Wings of Redemption, Boogie 2988, the podcast that's now become a fight that I'm guessing is supposed to turn back into a podcast later. Okay. As most of you guys may or may not know, it has been announced that sometime in May, Wings of Redemption and Boogie 2988 are supposedly supposed to have a boxing match. It's going to be an undercard for the next big boxing match that Happy Punch is having. That's like less than 2 fucking months. It's like less than 3 months away, certainly. I don't see it happening, to be honest. They're going to be two people. They're going to look like two beached whales out there. Neither one of them is clearly in fighting shape. Neither one of them would even pass a physical, let alone. Those guys are not going to go, let's say it's 3 5-minute rounds. Ha! And that's not going to happen. So they couldn't even go 3 3-minute rounds. I don't even think those guys could go a minute and a half. And that's just circling each other. I want you to think about this for just a second, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine, you don't have to do it now, but just for the sake of argument, stand up and shadow box for 30 to 45 seconds. Now imagine Boogie and Wings doing that for 30 seconds. If you decide to do it for 45. No. For one, if this thing has been going on for a little while and Keem is just announcing it, Wings is definitely not in shape. I just saw him cramming Wendy's chili and, I don't know, some type of burger down his gullet not too fucking long ago. If it'd been different, if he had been walking as long as Kelly has, that would be different. I could understand Wings probably having a better situation there. But instead, he's been sitting there basically mainlining Yoo-Hoo and fucking chili and God knows what else. Boogie is even worse. To be honest with you, Boogie's just a puppet. He's just doing this for attention because he needs to try to get himself to be relevant again. So anything that will put him back in the spotlight and he can make some money off of, that's all he cares about. Wings only cares about money, but Wings is a bitch and he don't have no fight in him. He never did. So his chances are even lower unless he goes into that ring and thinks about, what's that guy's name? We call him the Shoe Baron, but Morning After Kill. Unless he imagines Morning After Kill, if he had actually, if enough time was given, him plowing Kelly. Or if he thinks about how his mother really don't give a shit about him. And truth be told, Wings, when your mother passes away, everything that she has will go to her new husband, or her current husband, I should say, who's not your father, and to your brother and your sister. So maybe you're going to get mad about that and think about that in the ring. Maybe that can give you some fight. I mean, I don't know. What do you have to really fight for? You've already lost. So is Boogie. So you got two overweight losers that are going to walk into the ring to what? To die? And I wish I could be funny about that, but I'm not. The possibility of Boogie, for example, having a stroke or a heart attack in that ring is high. Wings could very well have a heart attack in that fucking ring. Then what? And then Happy Punch is going to sit there and deal with the insurance that comes with that, let alone any fucking lawsuits, because Lord knows, just because Wings' mom don't give a shit about him, if Wings dies in that ring, oh boy, she's going to throw her body. She will throw her body on his dead carcass and sue Keem and Happy Punch for everything they're worth. And some. So truth be told on that. So nothing's going to come out of that. I don't think. If Wings don't bitch out, I don't see it happening. I don't. And then knowing Wings, he's probably going to ask for way more than what he's worth. Plus he's going to want a piece of the box office and all that. Can't do any of that anyway because he's not the main event. He's just an undercard. So, I think, I can't remember if it was in a Lummox video, a Wings 007 video, or a Breaking Banquet. Big ups to all three of them. I don't know what video it was in, but I think one of them had speculated, or Wings said some shit about he wanted something about Kelly to come out there, and I can understand that, having your spouse come out there to watch you get beat the fuck up or whatever the case may be. But if Keem decides not to do it, then guess what? You're going to eat that, and you better get in that ring and lace up anyway. To be honest, you're not really in a position per se to make demands, if you will. But I don't think that's too unreasonable, honestly. And if it's held outside of the country, because I think the first one was, then, you know, you're giving her essentially the honeymoon that she's getting, the honeymoon that you could never give her. So maybe you getting your face pounded in might work out, but maybe it won't. I don't know. I just feel like that fight's just a joke. I feel like it's not going to happen. I think Keem knows it's not going to happen. And unless he's using this as some type of advertising to get the podcast off the ground, I don't see no value in it, to be honest. As it pertains, let's jump over to the next subject. The podcast with with Boogie and Wings. They need a third. They need a third person. I'm sorry, the two of them are not going to be able to carry that on their own. They need someone else. And I know Keem is there, quote unquote, but he's not there because he's kind of like behind the scenes. So someone else needs to be there to carry the weight. No pun intended. They need someone to play off of. And I don't know necessarily who. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who. Like, DSP theoretically works to that. He works to those ends, but only because of how resentful he is, and then he just has so many uninformed fucking takes about the world, which is amazing because you have someone who chronically lives on the internet, yet he knows nothing about nothing. It's fucking amazing. I've told people like outside of all this bullshit on the dumb takes that DSP has, and I send them fucking clips of that shit, and they think it's a joke. They think it's an act, like, you know what I'm saying? And it's not. It's. I mean, I don't know if it would really be funny if it was, but it definitely isn't. So, whatever. But I mean, good luck to them on the podcast. The fight's not happening. I don't think. I personally don't think. Especially from what I'm hearing from Wings, man. He sounds like he's already slowly but surely talking himself out of that fight. He's already talking out of it. He's saying that, oh, you know, this is a good thing for me. You know, maybe this will finally get me, you know, motivated to lose weight, this, that, and that. Shut the fuck up. You sound like Amberlynn Reed. You're never, you know what I'm saying? She gonna die eating, and so is you. Sadly. But that's what's gonna happen. There is no getting around that. You know what I mean? There's no getting around it. And you would think for Amber especially, just like Chantel or Foodie Beauty, you would have thought after you lost the ability, you lost the choice to have children because you chose to eat yourself into an early grave, that right there should have been a wake-up call. And it wasn't. So Wings, how the fuck am I supposed to expect that someone like yourself who sat there and begged for surgery money, you have this huge fucking encompassing hate mob around you over that nonsense, over that money that you finessed, and then you pack the weight right back on, and now you thinking that a boxing match is going to change anything. You knew about that match long before Keem announced it, and you didn't do not a goddamn thing to get yourself ready, to get yourself healthy, or anything. So how the fuck, if it wasn't a wake-up call for you then, when Keem presented the idea to you, why the fuck am I supposed to believe it's a wake-up call for you now? Honestly. And Boogie don't care. If Boogie dies in the ring, he's going to get what he wants. He's going to get fame after the fact. He just won't get to enjoy it. So Boogie don't care. But you, Wings, you should. Even though, I mean, your mother don't like you, your wife don't like you, it's whatever. So, I don't know. Maybe you're on borrowed time too. But don't say no stupid shit about how, oh, if I want, this will finally, you know, get me motivated. You've never been motivated. Ever. If Wings of Redemption had any fight in him, he died a long time ago. He lost that fight and he died a long time ago. That's why you follow DSP the way you do. That's why you try to pull the little bullshit that he does. You're essentially just DSP's little brother. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. That's all it is. And the thing is, you used to be fun. You used to be fun. And now you just exist. You're not even surviving. You're almost at DSP's level. You just exist. And that's all you'll ever be known for. Like any other redeeming qualities that you may or may not have had have left you a long time ago. And that's sad to say. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember watching the old school stuff that Wings did after the fact, long after the fact, honestly. But, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate what he did. You know what I'm saying? He made, for all intents and purposes, he made camping viable. I don't know necessarily about making it cool. He definitely made it situational. But Wings had an effect on the Call of Duty community, for good or bad. I mean, mainly good. Most people don't have, you know, I mean, in the end, he ended up crashing and burning. But in the beginning, though, he helped a lot of people out. He put a lot of people on, you know? And he let his own personal insecurities fuck all that up. And he screwed up opportunities and friendships and all that bullshit. That didn't need to happen. So, you know, I don't know what exactly you're fighting for, to try to keep the mobile mansion alive or keep it up or whatever the case may be, but I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It sounds like two desperate men going out there, and it's not going to really pay off. Both of you will piss that money away, whatever the amount that's being offered to you. You'll piss it away just as quickly as you got it. So I don't even know if it's even worthwhile. You know, yet again, just like DSP, you've just become a sideshow event. That's really all that boxing match has looked at. And that's all really that Keem is kind of promoting it as. It's a sideshow. Two washed up fucking lames on the internet fighting it out until, you know, the first person who gets gassed or the first person who has a heart attack. And I wish I was funny about that shit, but it's not. That's really all Keem sees in you. And truth be told, maybe he's not wrong for that. Maybe he is. I don't know. I mean, if you don't have any self-respect, how can anybody else? Anyway, and I guess after that, the podcast is supposed to be a thing afterwards. Maybe. I don't know if that's supposed to be, if this boxing match for whatever that's called, is it supposed to be like a bonding type event or like a bonding type of exercise to get you guys, I don't know, to get you guys acclimated to each other, so then when you guys do the podcast, you know, you guys have a level of camaraderie. Maybe that's what that is. I don't know how Keem's mind thinks. I can only assume. But if I was in Keem's shoes, if I had to give people a reason on why I'd be putting both of you in the ring, that's the only reason I can come up with. If I can make some money off the sideshow, so be it. But if I had to give someone an actual reason with actual meaning, that's what I would say. But who could say? I don't know. It'd be, yet again, if DSP was there, they could have him do commentary. They could have had him do commentary. That might have been funny. So that's that. As for the podcast, I don't know how it's going to work. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't think the match is happening. By the way Wing sounds right now, he sounds like he's about to talk himself right out that bitch. But I may do a video on that, just so you guys can kind of see where I'm coming from. Actually, it'll be one video, but there'll be a bunch of videos in it, because this is over the span of like multiple days and shit. Anything else? That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as I get the Stuttering Craig stuff from Side Scrollers, I'll do a video on that. And I'll do a video on that. Okay, wait a second. There's the initial, when Steve initially talks about it, then he had the email thing this morning, and then I wonder if he's going to respond to whatever DSP had to say. We'll see. Now I got to wait and see, because I kind of want to see if I get everything before I actually move on it. But we'll see. But I already had a bunch of videos lined up, but I'm going to ask for the editor to go ahead and push what was supposed to go up, to push this in its place, and then next week we'll see how next week goes. That's pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you guys for kind of hearing me out. That's my initial thoughts on at least the DSP nonsense with this whole interview, and whatever happens and whatnot. Like I said, best of luck to everybody who's involved or who's trying to make something out of it. We'll see. I don't know if Craig can. I don't know if he can execute. I just don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, on a long enough timeline, maybe. you know, on a long enough timeline. But like, like to get it all down in a couple of weeks, you know, I don't even with some of the best people that are helping him right now, I don't think he's gonna get it. I don't think he's going to get it. It's just so much to go over, and you have to kind of suspend your disbelief to make it happen. You know, same things with Wings in this fight. No one's really taking this shit seriously. It's just kind of like a joke. You know what I'm saying? You can, you know, it's just a sideshow type thing, to be honest with you. And I don't even, and outside of the reason that I gave you, as this is supposed to be some type of bonding exercise, I don't really understand what the end game is for Keem outside of that. I really don't. Well, I can suspect. I can speculate, but I don't know. Anywho, like I said, thank you guys very much for listening in. And, yada, yada, yada. And I'll let you guys later. Oh, man. Take care of yourselves. SnortBucks Coffee, the best beverage company. And I'll see you guys on the flip. Later, people.